Welcome loves to my YouTube channel. My name is VassaOlga. In today's video, we're going to be talking about application. We're going to be talking about Beauty Blender, about brushes. For my left side, I'm going to be using my brushes. For my right side, I'm going to be using Beauty Blender. You can see the difference. We're going to dive in this video in a sec, but for now, just if you're interested, then please stay tuned and let's get started. Well, it's gonna be fun. I'm gonna start with my sunscreen. This is a Korean brand. You can use anything available. And applying this as a moisturizer and protector all over my face. Then I went to my Catrice primer. This one is optional. You can skip the step or you can use it as I did. Then I wanted to create some bones underneath. That's why I went to my LA Girl concealer. For my both sides, I used the same concealer, but different application with a brush and Beauty Blender. You can see brush is blending out everything much faster and much better. It's given the shape, but with the Beauty Blender I had to go back to the same LA Girl concealer because it was wiping off a lot of the product. That's why it's not the best option to use your Beauty Blender to blend out your contour. Then I went to my brush to contour my nose and Beauty Blender as well. And then I used my lipstick with a combination of moisturizer and applied this all over my contour. Beauty Blender took off some of the product. That's why it wasn't the best option as well. Then I went to my foundation. This one is from Catrice and I love the application with the brush, but with the Beauty Blender it was sort of full coverage or medium coverage, I'd say. With the brush it was light coverage. And then I went with my concealer. This one is from Sephora. I'd say that I really love this concealer. It's so liquid based and it's really spreadable. That's why I can use my Beauty Blender for that purpose, for the matter, or I can use my brush. It doesn't really matter. In this case, it just wasn't much of a difference. And then for my under eye area, I went with my Essence concealer. This one is my favorite and I used a little bit of highlighter. I added some Deep Puff Eye Serum underneath my eyes and of course a little bit of my pink, not even a blush, but this was liquid lipstick. And of course I use my finger for both sides. This is like something that I do every single time. It doesn't really matter if I use a brush or a Beauty Blender. It's really important that I use my finger because it doesn't absorb moisture underneath my eyes. For my left side I used a brush to transfer my powder, but for my right side I used some makeup puff. I don't really think it's gonna change anything like a Beauty Blender or a puff, but I love the puff side a little bit more. That's why I'm not really a huge fan of a brush. And for my real contour, my powder contour, I used a brush and it was so much better to spread. And for my right side, I used my Beauty Blender and some powders. My Beauty Blender was wet and my contour was so bright and the payoff was crazy. It was really hard to blend out. That is the main reason my recommendation is to go small and to start small, let's say. Just build the product, not as I did. And of course, for my blush, I used a little bit of Wet n Wild, and you can see that it just better with the brush from my perspective. And with a highlighter, I prefer Beauty Blender. Beauty Blender with a highlighter is much better. It's beaming through. You can see how beautiful it is right in a sec. And my brush, it was nice, just not as glazed as a Beauty Blender. And I would say, yeah, look at this. It's so freaking pretty. Always use your Beauty Blender, wet Beauty Blender to transfer your highlighter. Then I used my setting spray. This one is from Essence as well. And I used my Beauty Blender to smudge everything out. I know it might break the rule that I use it for my brush side, but it's so good. Do not skip this routine. Okay guys, and that is the final result. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I know that I did something similar about a year ago, and here is the result. This is my left side, and I used brushes only to recreate this left side. I'll tell you that I did my makeup, like eye makeup, with brushes, of course. It's not gonna work out with the Beauty Blender, so I was doing only foundation, and this is the final result. I really love it. I feel it's a little bit less coverage, but it's still looking really pretty, and I know that it's going to be probably a little bit more long lasting. This side is really pretty, but this nose area is already cracking. That's why I'm not a huge fan of Beauty Blender. It is obvious that with the Beauty Blender you're gonna have full coverage practically, and with the same product you can actually have similar effect, but with brushes it's just a little bit less product. With my right side it's looking really pretty, and I'd say that probably I love my right side a little bit more than my left side with the Beauty Blender. for now, but I guess in a few hours I'll probably face some cracking, some other problems, probably a little bit more intense, especially contour. We used wet powders, that's why it was a little bit harder to blend out the product, but still we meant to do that, especially with a fix and spray and some beauty blender. And I'll tell you that I love the side for some night out. It's better for some formal events and you still have some coverage. When beauty blender was invented, or maybe not even invented, but spread it into masses, I believe it was huge. It was just a complete revolution of what we knew about makeup. And for some period of time, people forgot about brushes and they just completely wipe them out of their life. So I guess beauty blender and brushes, you need to use like both of them. But even if you don't have lots of brushes and you have only beauty blender, then you can still create something decent and pretty. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you are gonna leave some comments and tell me your thoughts. Which side is your favorite, beauty blender side or brush side? I guess it's a little bit more blended and less pigmented than this side. But okay, who cares? I hope I'm gonna see you in my next video. Love you so much. Bye bye.